Hello and welcome to episode 80 of Sutton Impact Family Style. I'm Jason.
I'm Bill.
And thank everybody that stuck with us this whole time. It's been great. We really appreciate those that have contributed to Patreon. It helps us make sure the show can actually keep going.
We really appreciate the support. It's been fun. We've enjoyed it. And 80 episodes have gone really, really fast.
And hopefully we've gotten better over the year. I feel like we have.
I feel like we have.
I'm not sure if the audio is quite improved as much, but that's fine. But the quality of the talking, I think, has gotten more consistent.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to start off with a little business. So what are we starting with today?
Well, let's start off. The talk right now, I was reading this week's Sport Business Journal, and the big talk is, what will the NFL be like this year? And there was three main criticisms of the NFL. One is TV ratings, which have declined considerably over the last couple of years.
Sure.
Number two was, and I'm a big believer in this one, over-officiating and rule interpretation has made the game a little less fun and a little less consistent. And I totally agree with that.
In this new rule, the helmet rule, looks like it's going to be just a disaster.
Agreed.
Like, I appreciate what they're trying to do as far as player safety goes, but I don't quite understand. It doesn't seem like it's, it seems just insanely confusing to both the players and the fans. And I don't know how you legislate that out of football unless you take away the helmets, like people have said, which is a whole other level of bad. So I don't know what you do with it.
I have no idea. It just blows me away. So those are two criticisms. And, of course, the anthem consideration. The anthem is the third thing. And, people feel that's baked in now, that's, part of what it is. So they don't think they'll have as much effect this year. But the people that have left have already left. And we'll have to see. I mean, I think traditional TV viewing will continue to decline. But I think streaming and consuming it different ways like that will continue to increase. I just think it's hard to get a real feeling about what the ratings are going to be. But my biggest concern probably is the fact that they're doing so many things rule-wise and trying to do some things that it's kind of turning people off. The whole catch rule and everything, it's been really, really a downer the last couple of years. And, I'm watching college football yesterday, I'm watching targeting, and all these things. It's not football. And if something else comes along, who knows? So we'll see.
Yeah. I know what I've always wanted is I just want the NFL, like for any call they don't know, I would take a former player, a current official, and a fan. I'd put them in a booth in New York, and I'd give them a red button and a green button. And they'd have 30 seconds to review the play, and they hit whether it stays or it goes. If they overturn the call or keep the call going, and just have those three people decide all. They got a big screen TV in front of them, flashes up, they watch the play in real time, and that's what we go with, and just roll like that. I think it'd be save time, and I think it'd be interesting.
Cool.
Plus, I feel like again, it's one of those.
I kind of like the idea.
And again, maybe it's some formulation of those three, like a jury, and just bam, done. Call stands green, call goes reverse call red, and that's the way it is. That's the law. Just makes sense to me.
I like it.
And again, I think we all know what a catch is when we see a catch.
Yeah, we do.
Jesse James, Des Bryant, those were catches. Simple. And I know they've come back and they're like, yes, in retrospect, those were catches. But it's like they were catches when they happened. Everybody could see it. So.
Well, retrospect doesn't help the team that lost out on the call, does it?
No, it does not. No, it does not.
Well, staying on our business moment and staying on our football topic, I want to talk about the Alliance of American Football.
Okay.
Really been following closely because a number of my former students are going to be working in it.
Nice.
So it seems like this league's putting a high premium on getting quality people to come in. And they're going to try and make it a fans league. And they're going to try and be like a developmental league for the NFL. That's where they're going to try and go. And I think those things can happen. I just think a couple of the markets to me are questionable. Like I would not have put a team in Atlanta. And I would not have put a team in Phoenix. I still think those are good markets for another football team. There's so many things going on in Phoenix and Atlanta. I just don't think there's room for something else.
Okay.
So that's my concern. But Memphis, San Diego, Orlando, I thought those were all real good considerations.
You think San Diego's a good consideration?
I do.
Okay. Because they never seemed that excited about having it.
People that would like to watch football.
Yeah, but they never seemed that excited or supportive of the Chargers.
No, but I think they can hang 20,000 people up. I mean, there's still probably 20,000 people. This is not going to get 50,000 person game.
Right.
This is going to be 20 to 25 if they do it right. I think they might have lost their ambitions in that. And then I heard for the next year they're talking about putting teams in Las Vegas. I can't imagine putting a team in Las Vegas before the Raiders team comes in. I don't agree with that one either. But neither here nor there. That's my thoughts on it. But I think the league has a good shot of succeeding. It's a single entity, so it's going to control a lot of expenses and do a lot of things. So we'll see how that goes. And we'll see. I mean, if you're trying to be a developmental league, or trying to be a farm system, whatever you're trying to be, you and I were talking offline about all the guys with NFL experience, quarterback-wise, are sitting out there now with nowhere to go, right?
Right.
So it seemed like that's one of the hardest positions to get. And, if you get these guys playing and maybe they get a second chance, who knows what happens?
Yeah. It's true.
So we'll see where it goes.
And if they sort of embrace like that minor league ball club system where, maybe you got pools in the outfield or pools, crazy stuff to enhance the experience too,
I think they're trying to do a lot of damn things. I think prices are going to be friendly. I think we do concessions like Atlanta. We'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah. I think it sounds good.
I just thought it was going to be a big TV product, but we'll see. I just don't think, I think other people, there's other things people want to watch, other things people want to see, so we'll see where it goes.
I would either have to know the person in the game playing, or it would have to be, like if the NFL teams combined and it's like, the AFC North team or whatever, however they decide it's, and I'm watching, 17 Steeler players or potential, future Steelers that are on minor league system, like maybe then I'd watch. But it would take a lot to get me to actually watch those games. I mean, if I'm just being honest, even as somebody that loves football.
Oh, I agree, 100%. But you know what? I would probably drive up to Orlando to see what a game looked like just to see it.
Right.
So I'll probably do that. I will give it a trial.
Now, when we think about this league moving forward, where do you think a guy like, Johnny Manziel today and Tim Tebow 5 years ago, where do they fit in? Is that something you throw in there, or does that cheapen your league?
Well, I could put Tebow in just because I want to make money.
Right.
Tebow draws fans. Johnny Manziel, I don't know. Johnny Manziel, the Canadian Football League experience has shown that maybe he's not a player.
Right.
And so I would be more on the Tebow thing, but only as an attraction. It'd be like a circus for me.
Right, but if you're...
I'd be more interested in some of these guys that, can a Landry Jones really play? I don't think he can, but maybe he plays 12 games and maybe somebody picks him up next year, so it's hard to say.
Right, but like you look at a Landry Jones, like at the very least, he can play a standard quarterback. So if I'm an NFL team and I want to evaluate my offensive line and my running backs and my group of wide receivers, then I have a legitimate quarterback in there and I can showcase him. Whereas if I'm putting in like a sideshow like Tebow, and I give him, they beat the Steelers in that bizarre playoff game that I'm not sure how the Steelers couldn't score 17 points with the offense they had, but they couldn't. And and he gave up a slant pass for 80 yards, not like an incredible Tebow play. But I mean, if you start bringing in sort of these fan name sort of sideshows, like, are you also, are you going to hurt the quality of what you're doing with that, But I know, but again, it's a money thing, so it's a dichotomy. Where do you
probably need something to help tune in people to either go or watch it on TV.
Yeah.
So you need those things. So you need a combination of both. So maybe that's what gets people to watch the young players. So we'll see.
Yeah.
I guess since we're talking football, let's go right into our predictions.
All right.
And is this our West week or our South week?
This is our West week. We started with the South.
That's where we did. So, okay. So AFC West.
So we got our Chargers, our Broncos, our Chiefs. And why did it just flake? Where's my notes?
And Raiders.
And the Raiders. Yeah, that's why I forgot, because it's the Raiders in case.
Right. So I'm thinking this division is a runaway for the Chargers. And maybe they'll fill up that 30,000 seat stadium they're playing in. But I think it's a runaway year for the Chargers. I think the Chiefs are probably more intriguing than anybody else for second.
I would say I think the Raiders are just an absolute just mess. I have no idea why you hired a guy that seemed like an idiot on television, and his only success basically came, you know, he won the year that right after Tony Dungy was let go, and you could sort of argue that he came in and just didn't crash the car, but that nothing he did as a coach was really all that innovative or really good because once he had a chance to get his own players, he ran that team right into the ground. Um, I also think he's one of the.
I think there's going to be some big time dissension on that team or disappointed feelings about the Khalil Mack thing.
Right, you traded one of the best players in football. Now, granted, you got a nice haul. You gave up Khalil Mack and a second-round pick, and you got 2 first-rounders, a third, and something else for a guy you didn't want to pay.
You also sent the message to your guys that we're not going to pay you, and so that's a bad message to send. I mean, if you don't want to pay one of the best players in the NFL,
oh, I hear you.
That's a bad thing.
And you recently traded, and thank you very much, Oakland Raiders. You traded a third-round pick to the Steelers for Martavis Bryant, who you just cut because he's going to be suspended again. And I know he's, when he, for the, 11 games that he played well in for the Steelers, he looked incredible. But that was over almost.
That's what you got to say. I mean, a world of talent in a 10-cent brain.
Yeah.
I mean, it's sad. It's really sad to see somebody with that much talent not use it. It just boggles my mind.
Yeah. I think John Gruden's going to be a terrible coach, just like he was terrible on TV. He's the Dick Vitale of the NFL, someone who says a ton of words and never actually says anything interesting. It's a lot of catchphrases and goofy faces, and you might as well replace him with a soundboard because that's all it is. There's nothing of substance to it. So I think they're dead last. I'm picking the Chiefs to win it. I'm buying into the
Chargers.
The Chargers have proven, I think, for the last decade that they're going to find a way to choke this away. Maybe even miss the playoffs, no matter how much talent they have. I mean, I've seen GMs say that they think the Chargers are one of the 2 or 3 most talented teams in the NFL. And I know you've got Bosa on defense, and you added Derwin James, you got Phillip Rivers, and all these great receivers, Melvin Gordon. You brought Antonio Gates back, who I feel like has been in the NFL since before I was born. I know he hasn't been, but it feels like he has. But I don't know. The Chiefs just look. I think the Chiefs are going to squeeze it out.
All right, I'm going to go. I'm 10-6 for the Chargers, 9-7 for the Chiefs.
And I think
close.
And I think the Broncos.
I think Chargers win. I just don't see the Chargers not winning.
I think the Broncos are going to be frisky because you got on defense. You're going to have Von Miller opposite Bradley Chubb, which is as good a pass rushing duo as you're going to have in the NFL. On offense, Emmanuel Sanders looks great again. Shout out to the former Steeler. Demaryius Thomas. And, Case Keenum has got to be an upgraded quarterback, right?
Yeah.
They had one of the worst quarterbacks. I know he's Case, whatever. But, he led a team to the NFC Championship game last year and played fairly well, And I think the Rolls Royce looks fantastic in the backfield.
All right, I got them as 8-8.
Seems about right. I think Keenum holds it back from being anything great.
The Chargers, you talked me down on the Chargers. I was really going to go 11-5 or 12-4, but I was settled for 10-6.
And again, I don't know if it's coaching, if it's Phillip Rivers, it's whatever it is. That team just year after year they've been the hot team. Plus, they're that team right now that everyone is like, ooh, the Chargers or this. You never want to be the sexy pick before the season starts, and they clearly are. And that team, I feel like they're just doomed. So I'm going Chiefs, Chargers, Broncos in some order, and then I think the Raiders are going to be one of the worst teams in football. Because I also don't think Derek Carr is a very good quarterback. I know the analytics guys love him because he completes like 75% of his passes, but he only throws the ball 2 yards, so it's not that difficult. So I'm down on them. Way out.
Okay, now since we talked about the Raiders, we got to flip and talk about the Bears again because they're going to be bad. So you're going to get probably pretty high. That 2019 pick is probably going to be a top, I would say, no less than a top 6, top 7 pick.
See, I don't know. Now granted, it comes down to a quarterback I don't really believe in Trubisky. But they've got an excellent defense that added Roquan Smith and now Khalil Mack. They were the 10th best defense in football last year. And you add those 2 guys in another year under that coaching staff, and I think
they can score on defense.
That easily puts him in the top 10. I think Jordan Howard and Tariq Cohen are an exciting backfield. They have a pretty solid offensive line. And those receivers like Anthony Miller, Kevin White looks like he's finally ready to contribute after 3 seasons of being hurt. I mean, and obviously tight end is pretty solid. I mean, obviously it's all going to come down to Trubisky and what can he actually do. But you saw a team with a great defense and a shaky quarterback with very limited ability in Jared Goff go pretty far last year. So I think with the right coaching staff, they can make Trubisky work.
Well, since you just brought up Jared Goff, let's talk about NFC West.
Okay.
So I'll let you go first. But based upon your comment, I'm thinking you're not picking the Rams.
Oh, I'm picking the Rams because defense wins championships and they've got great defense. Insane defense. I mean, you added 2 head cases to that defense, but if you're lining up now Aaron Donald and Ndamukong Suh in the middle of your line, and Quinn and those other guys on the outside, like they're going to be able to rush 3 guys sometimes and get pressure on the quarterback, which is what you have to do on defense. And you had to keep Talib on the outside. I mean, that defense is going to be insane. They went for $35 in our $200 budget in our fantasy league, which is kind of insane for a defense. Yeah, and I know that obviously my fantasy football league is. What's that?
That was the highest price defense.
Oh, by $25. Yeah, I don't know how that happened, but whatever. But I mean, I just think their defense is absolutely incredible. I think they have one of the best coaches in football. And then you still got Gurley and the rest of that team. I mean, they added Brandon Cooks, who I'm not all that excited about, but I think he's at least as good as Sammy Watkins was. So I think it's kind of a wash. But I still like the Rams to come in first in that division.
Yeah, I'm definitely thinking it's an LA. Both the West teams, they both win. So I'm with the Rams as well. I guess, I don't know if I can put San Francisco second.
They've got a lot of hype.
Seattle seems to be going in the wrong direction.
But so does Arizona. I mean,
and the Cardinals don't have anything. So I guess I'm going to go San Francisco second. And I see them as a 8-8, 9-7. Not better than that, I don't think.
No, I think at some point when Marquise Goodwin is your quarterback and Carlos Hyde is your wide receiver and Carlos Hyde is your running back, like I just don't think they have all the pieces,
I thought they get rid of Carlos Hyde.
Did they get? Oh yeah, where's Carlos Hyde at right now? Well, they have Jeremy. They added Jeremy McKinnon, but he's out for the season.
He's out for the season.
Yeah.
And it's a big loss, but it's a guy you're counting on.
It is. And I like Pierre Garçon.
I guess I'll go the 49ers second because I just think the Seahawks are self-destructing.
They still, for some reason, I feel like they're like mimicking the Steelers when we were younger because they still can't put an offensive line in front of them. No matter who they sign in free agency, no matter who they draft, they can't get a good O-line in front of Russell Wilson,
And again, I think they're going to have morale problems.
Yeah, we still have Earl Thomas holding out. He's unhappy. But I think the Cardinals are going to be awful.
Josh Rosen starts from day one, I think.
No, Sam Bradford's got the starting gig.
Yeah, I don't think that. I just don't see him lasting. If he lasts for the first game, I think it's a miracle.
Yeah, history would say he won't last very long, but
yeah.
And I love Fitzgerald, but Fitzgerald is, he's not really a difference maker anymore. He's probably the best slot receiver we're ever going to see, but I mean,
I'm going to say Josh Rosen's quarterback before the end of September.
I would think. I mean, at this point, we know what Sam Bradford is, and we don't know what Josh Rosen is. And
we know it, and we sure know what he isn't.
Yeah, and I think if you're the Cardinals, you want to get, your best guy. You want to get Rosen out there. You spend a top 10 pick on him, see what he can do.
Yeah, I'm just not impressed at all. I thought that was a crazy pickup for them.
Yeah, I just think based on the other 3 teams, I think the Rams are almost like the Patriots of the West, where, they could easily go 5-1 or 6-0 in the division and be a playoff team.
The question for me is Jared Goff, and was who he was last year who he is? Because the year before he was horrible.
Well, I think last year is who he was, but he wasn't asked to do very much last year. And the real question is because I think he can win that division and get him to the playoffs. But when it comes down to him making plays as a real pro quarterback against a good defense in the playoffs, can he actually make, reads beyond the first, because they're doing that thing where they're cutting off half the field like he's a college quarterback, where he's only asked to do like 1 or 2 reads. And the question is, can he actually play quarterback in the NFL? And I don't know if he can or not. But,
That's a good question. I don't know if he can either.
but he's got a great coach that makes the game as easy as possible for him. So,
We'll see.
yeah.
All right, so next week we're doing the North, right?
Next week is the North, so be prepared for some Steeler talk. Let's just throw it out there right now.
A lot of Steeler talk.
There's going to be a lot of Steeler talk. We may limit it to the discussion, and then we'll have some Steeler talk. We'll announce it towards the end of the show. We're going to go straight Steeler talk, and then maybe go a little heavy for the people that want to listen to us talk about the Steelers.
Okay. So let's talk about All In.
Let's talk about All In. Now, All In, obviously, we do talk about other things other than sports, but this is sports entertainment as opposed to just straight sports. It's wrestling. But what's interesting about All In is that for pretty much the last 20 years, the WWE's had a stranglehold on sort of the mainstream wrestling audience. You're always going to have your Southern wrestlers and your smaller independent factions, and then overseas you obviously have New Japan Wrestling, which is sort of a faster, crazier Japanese style of wrestling that your hardcore wrestling fans really like, but your average WWE fan is not that big into. But last year, that there was this group of, basically it's 3 guys. It's Cody Rhodes, who's the son of Dusty Rhodes, that big fat guy with the polka dot suit from old school WWE, and the Young Bucks, who were actual 2 brothers in real life, who have always been considered a little bit too small despite their talent for the WWE, because Vince McMahon likes big guys. But they sold out a 10,000-seat arena and made a ton of money on their pay-per-view. And they're going to do another one in Madison Square Garden. And they're really pushing this on. It's sort of the wrestlers, all the best wrestlers in the world that aren't in the WWE getting together and putting on this show and pay-per-view and getting it all done and sort of doing profit sharing and sort of being able to write their own stories and not be stuck with WWE writers and sort of do wrestling the way they want to do wrestling. And it was really cool to see it be that successful.
And reading on social media and reading a couple stories that I read, it seemed like it was extremely well received by the fans.
Oh, I watched after the pay-per-view, they gave a 17-minute thank you. And I would say of the 10,000 fans that bought seats, 10,000 fans stayed after the pay-per-view to listen to the thank you.
Did you buy the pay-per-view?
I did not, no.
Okay.
I'm not, I follow wrestling, obviously when I was younger, as you know, I was a big wrestling person. Jumping off the couch and wrestling with the dogs.
And gladiators.
Yes. But, since then I've sort of followed it, like there's, The Ringer does a podcast about wrestling, and then Bleacher Report sort of gives, updates and highlights. You can sort of watch the 2-minute highlight of the match, and I still have a vested interest in it. But I do know that, like, WWE, they've just been such they haven't had any competition. So on the one level, I'm really hoping this is a great competition. And, competition always breeds excellence for the most part. And hopefully this will get WWE back to where they need to be. Although, to their credit, NXT, which is in Orlando, the WWE, that now it was just sort of their minor league system, but now it's its own show. And Triple H runs that one, who used to be Hunter Hearst Helmsley in the WWE and Triple H in WWE, but Paul Lehman. But he runs that almost independent of Vince McMahon, and that's also an excellent wrestling show. I think Vince McMahon is a good example of somebody that did everything to lift his business up. He took wrestling from a small time. He took it from his dad and really ran with it and made it an incredibly huge brand. Obviously with the help of talents like, Hogan and all those guys over the years, but he did more to innovate this. But I feel like he's reached that point now where he can't see that things are changing, and he insists on continuing to do it the same way he's always done it. And I think
Which is interesting now that this competition is going along, because one of the axioms in marketing is to keep the main thing the main thing.
Yes.
And it seems like with his interest in the XFL and getting that off the ground and everything else, that maybe he's letting the WWE slip, and this really is the main thing. So maybe this is going to either signal a new era in wrestling, or he will figure it out and the main thing will become the main thing again, and it will become better for the competition.
Well, I think the other thing, sort of with this all-in promotion, if you look at it sort of in a macro level, like the problem with WWE is they're trying to sell every single wrestler and every single show to your youngest audience, your 3 and 4 year olds that love wrestling and see them as like real life superheroes, all the way to your 46, 56-year-old wrestling fan. And whether we're talking about movies or television or music, that's a hard audience to get that broad with.
It very much is.
And All In, those wrestlers are able to make, slightly more, I don't want to say adult story angles, but they're able to tell longer stories and maybe get a little bit more, hardcore. Because, that the WWE wants to make sure that the little kid is still buying, the John Cena t-shirt. So I feel like, it's in a good way, I think, like everything else. Like TV, it's very rare these days to have a Game of Thrones. It's part of the zeitgeist where everybody's enjoying it on the same level. And I think with wrestling, like it's been able to splinter where now you have both, like I said, on their own company, the NXT brand, and then obviously All In, where you have some, internal and external competition that's able to push the envelope and do things a little differently because they're not worried about, everybody. They're worried about, we see that there's this, this, whether it's 20% of wrestling fans are going to absolutely love what we do. And we're going to cater to those 20% of the wrestling fans. And if we get the others, that's great. But we're going to make 20% of the market absolutely love us. They're going to buy all of our stuff, watch all our shows, and they're going to be completely satisfied with what we have. Whereas the WWE is trying to say, we want everybody, which is obviously beautiful, is great. But I don't think that's very realistic to get anymore. Because everybody has options now,
Yep. And everybody wants to be a star. Whereas All In seems like it's more of, I don't know, a team. If you could say that about wrestling.
It is a team because, like, the top wrestler in Japan, I can't pronounce his name, and I'm not even going to try to, along with Kenny Omega, who's considered maybe the best wrestler in the world, and then the Young Bucks, and then, some other guys along those ways that, they're guys that just, for whatever reason, like Cody Rhodes, despite the fact that he looks like a wrestler, talks like a wrestler, is a third-generation wrestler, they never found a place for him to be. They always tried to push weird gimmicks on him in the WWE. And with All In and New Japan, he's been able to just go sort of create a character based on who he, what he feels and sort of run his character the way he wants to run his character. Because I've seen so many times over the years watching wrestling, and it's like, and I guess this, I watched a few behind the scenes things growing up too, where like Vince McMahon will bring somebody in and just be like, "You're this," and he expects you just to take that character on, whether that's something that really fits your personality and your skill set. He decides this is the wrestler we need. You're going to do this. Whereas in New Japan and with a lot of the guys in All In, they can sort of create their own brand, their own persona, like whatever persona fits them. And especially in guys that are half athlete, half actor, I think it leads to a lot more realistic storytelling, a lot better on the mic, those sorts of things. But obviously now we've also heard rumors that the WWE is furiously trying to sign all these guys back or give them chances now, and it doesn't sound like they want to, because it sounds like they're going to sell out MSG and then they're going to do another All In next year because, again, they're not working for the company. They are the company. So
it's interesting. Well, it's a story that we should watch throughout the year. Just come back and update it every once in a while.
Yes.
Viewing.
Yes.
So I went to the movies and I saw Crazy Rich Asians.
Oh, you did?
I did.
And what did you think?
Well, the three people I was with liked it a lot more than I did.
Were they female?
One was your mother.
Okay.
One was Bernie's wife, and one was Bernie.
Okay. Well, Bernie's wife and my mom, it makes complete sense that they would prefer that. They would like that movie.
To me, it was a chick flick. I wouldn't even give it a rom-com. I'd give it a chick flick.
Okay.
And I was expecting more of a comedy. And so it's a very well done chick flick.
That's what I've heard.
My takeaway is I want to go to Singapore because Singapore looks ridiculous. It looks like the most lavish place on earth.
Well, it's crazy.
One thing is the way they portray wealth in this movie is off the hook.
Okay.
It's pretty incredible. But they have Ken Jeong in it. He's in it for like 4 or 5 minutes, and they don't even let him really be Ken Jeong. He's not even that funny.
Huh. Well, again, it's nice to see. I mean, obviously the diversity angle is really nice too. When
Yeah, and I thought Constance Wu, who's on Fresh Off the Boat, does a nice job. She's one of the feature lead actors in it, and I forget what the guy's name is. He does a very nice job as the Hugh Grant or whatever you want to call it of the story. But it's definitely a chick flick.
Okay.
that 1800s Victorian England, the Jack the Ripper kind of time period.
Of course.
And I thought this thing was extremely well done. No actors that I've ever heard before, but typical of BBC, they don't cut expenses. I mean, they spend money, and they portray things really, really well.
Yes.
I mean, the settings, the scenery, the costuming, the sets are just incredible. And the story, both stories that I watched were really, really good.
Okay.
Likeable lead detective, who's not a detective anymore. He got thrown off the police force because he had kind of had a mental breakdown after something happened to his family. But so now he's what they call we would call it a private investigator. And I think the terminology there is something for hire, but it's not an investigator. They use a different word.
Okay.
The storyline really, really good. Really, really good. I would tell anybody that's worth a view on Amazon. It's on Amazon Prime. I thought it's absolutely worth a view.
Okay, well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I watched a very interesting movie. I watched First Reformed, which stars Ethan Hawke and Amanda Seyfried, and it's been getting a little bit, I think, of Oscar buzz. And I'll try to sum it up as quickly as possible without giving away anything. But Ethan Hawke he was a father who sent his son off to war. His son died in what he felt was sort of when he was searching for some sort of meaning in life, and he ended up becoming a priest. He and his wife separated, and he's now a priest at sort of a church that's both a church and a museum. It was a site of a runaway slave thing. So people come in, they take tours, and he lectures in front of 15, 20 people every week. It's a very small church.
What time period is this movie?
Current.
Okay.
One of his parishioners comes and says, "Can you talk to my husband?" And basically Amanda Seyfried's character, Mary. I know, bear with me because there's some religious overtones. She's pregnant, but her husband, he's freaking out about the world we live in, the environment. He's looking at oil and are burning down and global warming. He's like, what kind of world am I bringing this child into? And then he's like, what would God say about that? Would God forgive us for what we've done to the earth?
Okay.
So it's got a very environmental message. So it's sort of, and then the rest of the movie is sort of Ethan Hawke sort of coming to, he's making these same sort of he's now questioning these things. And, and the church's involvement, in politics and the environment, should they be? And if they're being quiet, why are they being quiet while there are others being destroyed? Where's the church on these matters? Are they just another corporation sucking up government money, or do they actually care about the earth and, sort of and those sorts of things? But it is also sort of an art house movie, so you're going to get some kind of bizarre scenes in it as well, including the ending, which, I think is left up for some interpretation. I think there's I looked on Reddit because I really, whenever you watch something, you want to see what other people had to say, and it seemed to be like we were all on the same sort of page as to what we thought happened, but it's a very different ending. I'll just say that.
Interesting.
But it's a very interesting film.
Global warming, I got to tell you this. I was just, in Colorado, up at Silverthorne, up in the mountains, about an hour and a half northwest of Denver.
Mm-hmm.
And they told me that, so right up in all the ski areas, okay?
Okay.
They told me this is the first year that they can remember ever where there was no snow or ice on any of the mountains right now. None.
Oh.
Yeah. So, that should tell you all you need to know about global warming. Because we do have some issues and we better figure them out.
Yes, indeed. And then on a lighter note.
Meals this week?
What's that?
You had good meals this week?
I had some of my I go to Cake once a week just to get their breakfast because I love it.
Okay.
But that was the most. I didn't go anywhere outside of the normal places this week. It's pretty busy. So.
Okay. Well, Mom and I ate breakfast at a place called the Happy Cooker in Georgetown, Colorado.
Okay.
And we ordered the cinnamon roll. And the is THE, all capitalized.
All right.
We had the cinnamon roll, which was a big-sized cinnamon roll with your choice of a fruit topping, like fresh strawberries, fresh peaches, whatever. And it was very, very good.
Okay.
And of course, I had biscuits and gravy with that. And I would tell you that biscuits and gravy in Colorado are pretty strong. So I would recommend the Happy Cooker in Georgetown, Colorado. Colorado, which is about, I'd say, a good hour northwest of Denver.
Okay.
And then I saw maybe the worst play I have ever seen in my life.
Nice.
And we left after the first act.
Oh, wow. That bad, huh?
And the play was called The Underpants. And it's a Steve Martin rewrite of a play in the early 1900s.
I see.
And I can tell you, I didn't laugh once. And we, at intermission, Bernie and his wife turned around and looked at us and goes, "Do you think this is as bad as we think it is?" And I said, "Yes." And it's one of those things where you just decide that, really don't want to waste any more time.
No.
You don't need to. Life is short. You don't want to waste any time. And I got to tell you, it was a bad story. The acting was horrible. The only thing I liked about it was the theater in the round, and so the theater was nice. But it was absolutely just the stupidest play. It wasn't funny, and it was no talent at all.
Wow.
It's community theater, but I mean, I've seen community theater before. It's been pretty good.
Right. Just not this particular community theater.
No.
Okay.
This just wasn't.
Oh, I also watched the very much hyped Thor Ragnarok, finally.
And
It's a Marvel movie. I don't know what you want to, It's the writer, it's the New Zealand writer that did What We Do in the Shadows, which is a movie I quite enjoyed. So it's got a lot more humor than I think most of the other Marvel films, or maybe not. I haven't watched them all, but it was still it's still good guy, bad guy. It looks like the good guy's gonna lose, and of course it's Marvel, so he doesn't. But
So it's a little formulaic, you say?
they're all a bit formulaic, but I know people love them, so good for you if you like them.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's pretty much it for this week. I think we went pretty long.
Yeah. It was a good show. We had a lot of good stuff to talk about this week.
Yes.
And next week we got the opening of the NFL season, so I'm excited about that. I was surprised by the LSU romp over Miami last night.
Yeah, people down here are pretty excited, obviously.
And I was not surprised at all about the Alabama romp.
It's hard to be surprised at this point.
Yeah.
But when you get,
And
you could put your second
the
or
App State Penn State game, I would have liked to have watched that. That was kind of interesting because that was the anniversary of the App State victory over Michigan. I think it was the same date a few years back.
yeah, they were so close.
They
So
were.
close.
Penn State is either very overrated or App State's very underrated. Or Penn State just took the game for granted.
I would say historically, not just for the Michigan game, but almost every year, Appalachian State isn't a team you want to mess with, I don't think.
Yeah. And you can see how badly Ohio State missed Urban Meyer. He scored 77 points.
A mere 77 points, exactly.
And tonight, I think tonight could be a decent game. Florida State and forget who they played.
Yeah, I'm already all NFL,
It's two top 20 teams. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
I'm going to watch it because Willie Taggart, who I like when he was coach here at USF, it's his debut as Florida State's head coach.
Okay.
So I'll watch that.
Sounds good. Virginia Tech.
Yeah, Virginia Tech, I think, yeah, should be a good game.
I think so.
An ACC game, so we'll see how it goes.
Exactly. So again, keep supporting us. Keep rating us if you haven't rated us. Please go rate us. It really helps a lot. And we'll see you next week to talk AFC, NFC North. A lot of NFL probably over the next couple months, obviously. As we wait till the beginning of the NBA season.
And baseball playoffs.
And baseball playoffs. Oh, and congratulations to Andy McCutcheon being a Yankee.
I know. It's good. I can actually root for the Yankees for the first time in my life now.
Yeah, definitely. And he does look weird, completely shaved, but good for him.
And I did like the fact that the Pirates traded David Freese to the Dodgers. So I think he'd given all here for the last 2 years.
Without a doubt.
So I appreciate him getting an opportunity to be there.
Yes.
Now I'm watching Pirates right now while we talk, and the only reason I'm watching now is to watch Adam Frazier, and he's 3 for 3 today.
Nice.
Including another home run. So.
All right, so until next week, we'll see you on episode 81.